want to give you an introduction into a concept that I call being a why master. You need to discover why your decision makers do what they do. The cool thing about this is that it's not just the decision makers that you're dealing with in your photography business. It's also your family, your friends, just the people that you meet on the street. You will immediately start to recognize these individuals and see them everywhere you are. So let's dive right in. My name is Mitchell Moore, and over the last 30 years, I have administered over 3,000 interview evaluations, and I've studied the personality traits that help people fit into their chosen roles, regardless of the type of business, whether that's managers and sales reps for national chains or cooks and wait staff. Someone comes in, gives you a resume, say, I want to be either a cook or a waiter. Those are completely opposite personality sets. And so, you really want to make sure that people fit where they belong. And with formal training from Selection Research International, SRI, Dr. Donald Clifton, I discovered a couple of decades ago why people succeed at some things and they struggle at others. During these last 2 decades, I developed my training to encompass not just the core personality types, but really just an observation at a distance of people and be able to tell what type of personality they are and therefore how they're going to respond in certain situations. I know ahead of time when I have a set of speakers who I'm going to have some extra support for and who's going to be able to walk right in the door and step up on stage and just go. So it helps me be better at serving them because I know what to expect. So it also allowed me to coach consultants and studio owners on how to relate with their customers, with their parents, with their staff, and really make all of the different personality types feel right at home and feel connected. Dr. Donald Clifton was one of my mentors growing up, and one of the things that he discussed is that our lives are shaped by the interactions that we have with others. Whether we have a long conversation with a friend or simply place an order at a restaurant, every single interaction that we have makes a difference. And if you ever get a chance to read the original version of or listen to the original reading of A Drop in Your Bucket by Dr. Clifton, it is a great book. Now, his concept has gone on to become the Strengths Finder program, which we'll talk about in a sec, but his original version you would really enjoy. So if you can find that recording out there somewhere, check it out, and I think you'll like it. So let's look at why. Why do so many people struggle with making the right connections, whether it's with their staff or their decision makers or their customers or their family and friends? Most people were never taught why others and themselves do what they do. Why do you react the way that you do when certain situations come up? When we're marketing to leagues or schools or early childhood centers, why in the world do decision makers do what they do? Sometimes it's just mind-boggling unless you understand how they perceived what you said. And then it makes a little more sense. So you could go in and give absolutely a knockout presentation. You did your fact finding, you got all the information right, you went in there, you made an introduction, and then you came back and you were ready for the presentation. You laid all the pieces out there, and then what happened? Well, when we look at why after the fact, after the presentation, why did they pick us? I know some of you have come away from presentations thinking, oh my Lord, I was in there against LifeTouch and Interstate and Katie and some others that are big, at least regional systems. Why'd they pick me? And then you're terrified. So you were really just kind of doing it for the experience, and now they did it. So now you're kind of on the hook, so to speak. But that's a good thing. Why did they not pick you? if they did pick one of those companies, or maybe they even picked someone that was less qualified than you are, what did they have that you didn't have? And it may not be a product, it may not be a widget or a water bottle or a button or a rebate. It might be something in the conversation itself. Or even worse, why did they not even call me back? I tried and tried and tried, and I never can get them to respond to me. So all of these things, they're all things that come up in that post-presentation or post-interview sit down. So when we look at the decision-making process, there are several factors that go into the decision that they ultimately make. And you know, they've got the power. I was at a presentation with Tony. Of course, this is one of the phrases that he uses a lot in the things that he teaches, but decision is the ultimate power. That decision to join together or the decision to walk away. It's just immense power in the situation. So what are the parts of the decision-making process that affect people? Well, life is probably the biggest factor. And in all of the classes, if you've ever been at any of the conferences or any of our boot camps, and you've heard me ask, okay, what happened to this person? You know, what happens to the parents when they're coming in to take pictures at the sports league? What happened to the mom went to work and the dad had to get the kid ready for the school picture day? What happened to ... Well, life. And you can see here, this is our decision maker. This is a young principal of a school, and all of these things are going on. He gets up, he has his coffee, and then suddenly everything hits. Now he's got to get his own kids packed up and ready to go off to preschool, and someone comes up inevitably, oh, I have this art project that's due in an hour, you know, and I don't have this or that. He's got things that he's got to do for his teachers, and things he's got to turn into the central office, and then he's got to get up and get out and get over there. So from the very beginning of the day, maybe the week, he's stressed. And Lord knows they've been incredibly stressed over the last few years when you throw COVID into the mix and all of the changes and just political stress that they've had to go through. So life is a big, big, big factor in the decision-making process. How stressed are they? How focused are they on your conversation to start with? And are they in the right mindset to be receptive to what you have to offer? Second one in impact is probably influencers. If you've ever finished a presentation, thought everything went well, maybe it was you and the principal, you got up and you walked out, and maybe you forgot something, or you came back in to ask a question, or you just looked through the glass as you walked away, and those one or two people that were hanging around out in the front of the school office there were gone. Well, they whipped into the office as soon as you walked out. So what did they have to say? What did they say? What are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? Or if it's a sports league, oh, good Lord, did they have a water bottle? Because I got to have my water bottle. It always seems to come back to the water bottle and buttons. You know, got to have a button. I need them buttons right up front. I need them in 2 days. Whatever it is, there's some loud, very opinionated influencer that wants to interject themselves into the process. Now, sometimes they may be an actual valued consultant of the decision maker. They may need that counsel, and they may be their advisor. That's great. But you also frequently see the kind of sneery-eyed influencers that slip right in there as soon as you step out. So one of the ways that we get around this is we can ask ahead of time, is there anybody else that you think we ought to involve? Anybody that you'd like to involve in the process or the conversation? And just bring them in. You're going to have to face them anyway. You might as well do it face to face instead of over the course of emails after they start working on your decision maker. The next one is a better offer. I mean, quite frankly, there are some times that someone else comes along with a better offer. Maybe you laid your best thing out there and, whoever it is, I'll just say some of my buddies, maybe it was Eric Miller, or maybe it's Jeff Gump, or whoever it might be. They come along and they just make a connection and they click and they walk away with the deal. Fair enough. We need to learn from it and make sure that we're able to connect in a better way. The fourth factor here is clarity. You know what you said, but that's not always what they hear. Amen? Anybody have children? Oh my Lord. What we say is sometimes rarely ever what they hear, or certainly what they do. So what makes something clear or unclear? Well, part of the big factor in that clarity is their internal wiring, their mental wiring, or their personality wiring. How are they built? And we know just from interacting with people from grade school that people are built very differently internally. And I don't mean we're physically different too, but I mean, just look at the country. Conservative or liberal, or really out there, or just want to go home, extrovert, introvert. You hear all these different polarities, but it all kind of comes back to how people are put together on the inside, right? Their mental or their personality wiring. It also matters about your wiring. As the influencer in your marketing, in your presentations, in everything that you do, you need to know and understand what you are. There's no right or wrong. No one is better than any of the others as a general rule. They're better at certain things, but we're just different. And so you need to understand what you are in order to connect effectively with your decision makers. So, personality assessments. You've heard about them. There are a plethora of assessments out there, and some that are just downright silly. But most of you have probably heard of the Enneagram. Oh, I'm a 1, or I'm a 7, or I'm a 3 married to an 8, or whatever it is. And just search it up. There are 9 basic types, and whether it's the peacemaker or the helper or the achiever, the overachiever, the loyalist, the investigator, there are all these different types, and they do a pretty good job of explaining it in a way that the average person on the street can understand it. Another type, the Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENFJ. And I'm an extrovert, and I work on intuition, and I'm a feeling type of person, but I judge things, and all these different connections. You can be a combination of all of these different things. It's a little less intuitive for people because if you're an ENFJ, you're different than if you're an ENFP. And sometimes, are you judging or perceiving? They're not necessarily things that are natural for people to understand the differences. So it's not necessarily one that the average person on the street uses. The work personality index is not one that's very common, but it is one that's out there, and it's got the 6 segments. And then StrengthsFinder is one that you've probably heard of. There are a large number of different strengths. The goal here was not to work on your weaknesses, but to find out what your strengths are and then put all your ponies in that race. It's proven that if you continue to build on those things at which you are strongest, it will carry the weight of some of your weaknesses. Now, there are some weaknesses that you've got to stop and take care of, but as a general rule, if you're going to put time and focus, you may only bring your weakness up on a scale of 1 to 10. If you have a weakness that's a 3, you might struggle and spend a lot of time and only get it up to a 5. But if you take a strength that is a 7, you might be able to get it to a 10. And so it comes at it from focus on your strengths, and you will do better in the long run standpoint. So this is a little different than what we're going to talk about. This is not the original concept. The original concept that I used from SRI and Dr. Clifton was a 4-part behavior index called DESA. And what this is dominant, expressive, solid, and analytical. It's 4 types. Very similar to DISC. DESA is one that was out there and in business, and DISC is one that has done a good job of marketing itself, and you can get DISC certified, and so it's kind of out in the spotlight. But DESA is the one that I started learning in the mid 80s, and it flows and it makes sense to a lot of people. So we're going to work from this very simple index, because you can look at people at a bus station or a train station or an airport, and you can put them into one of these 4 buckets pretty easily just by watching them for a few minutes. So let's dive right in. We're just going to start at the top, and let's talk about the dominant. Of course, the dominants don't want it any other way. They are the dominant, as the name implies. The dominants have traits that make them natural leaders. They're driven, they're self-confident, they like the big picture, they can be blunt, they love a challenge, whether that's a big group competition, or it may be climbing all the peaks over 20,000 feet in the world. Whatever it is, because Everest is kind of passé now. There's such a traffic jam of people trying to climb Mount Everest. That's not the pinnacle anymore. So whatever it is, maybe it's to be one of the first 100 civilians in space, because that's a thing now, we know. Whatever that challenge is, they're very competitive, and they get to the point, get it done, and move on. And this is not the get her done. This is no. We're going to focus. We're going to get this done, get it accomplished, and move on to the next point. Motivation. They may be limited by impatience. They do not like to sit and wait for team members or for processes or whatever it is, stoplights. They want to get on down to the goal and get it done. And so therefore they may have a lack of concern for other people's feelings. They like clear, concise conversation. They like bullet lists. No frills meeting. All right, we're going to do the annual review today between 8 and 8:05, and then we're going to go on and we're going to do da-da-da-da-da. I mean, not quite that aggressive, but if you have an executive or you've ever been in a different job where the executive was a dominant, they don't like lots of meetings just for the sake of meeting. I have some of those occasionally. It's, well, we're going to be here every Monday at 1 o'clock. Okay, if we don't have something that we need to be there Monday at 1 o'clock, then we need to work and not go sit in a room together, right? The dominant would just, okay, nothing new, skip this week, see you next week, and they would just cancel it and move on. They like no frills meetings. They don't want everybody sitting around talking, playing and talking about the weekend, all of that kind of stuff. They're not the chit-chatty type, especially when it's in a work environment like the meetings. So they like to work hard and they like to play hard. So if If they're going to do one, they're going to do the other. I like competency. If you are discussing things and negotiating things with a dominant, you need to make sure that you have your ducks in a row and you know what you're talking about. They love concrete results. You've got specific numbers. It shows this. This happens. You do this. This other thing happens. They like unique accomplishments. You know, if you were the first to do something, or if there's an innovation that is proven, but that it can do X result, they like that kind of thing. They're very independent, and they like to be in control. They do not like chatty coworkers or subordinates. Sometimes, you know, people will suddenly pick up the phone and act like they're on the phone when they see that chatty person, and we'll talk about that type here in a minute. But if they see them coming down the hall, well, the dominant would get up, walk over, and just close the door in their face. Have no problem with that. I'm busy. Talk to you later. And just close the door. And or get up and just leave the office. They do not need to connect with you. Now, they may need you as part of the team, and they may be enlightened enough to understand that, but they don't need you on a social basis. So they don't need the social connection with their team. Now, we're talking about, you know, principals or people in that role. Normally with a school, though, that hardcore dominant is not necessarily in that particular role. Sorry, I had to take a drink. They don't like forced social situations. They don't like small talk and mingling. Pointless meetings we talked about. If you're going to send them something, do not send them lots of copy. They will not read it. They have no way. They'll just throw it in the trash. If you have a bullet section and then the longer form, that might work, because they'll look at the information they want. If they have more questions, they can go into the rest of the information. They do not like to lose under any circumstance. And they don't like to lose control. So when we think about dominance, I don't want you to understand, I don't want you to misunderstand. I don't want you to think that this is necessarily a jerk. They don't have to be a jerk about it. They just are demanding, and they expect everybody to have their own same level of commitment, and they want it done. So if you're dealing with one of these individuals, you just need to know that. Or if you are one of these individuals, you understand that not everybody's like this, and so you know, you might have to open up a little bit and work with some of the other personality types. So the key to working with a dominant is to streamline your message. Okay, get to the bottom line. Again, you can have the rest of the information there, but you want to make sure that they're able to get to the bottom line quickly. Focus on the facts, but include all of the facts. If they want more, they will ask for more. And as in the third point here, omission is sometimes perceived as intentional, and it may be thought of as deception. I worked with, I was head of operations for a system, and the one person above me was the CEO, who was very much a dominant. And if anyone said something that was not factually accurate, they immediately perceived it as deceit. Why is he lying to me? And to the point of wanting people dismissed because they told something that wasn't true. Well, in those situations, none of them were actually being deceitful. They were either misinformed, or he called a lot of people on the carpet very quickly, and sometimes they weren't prepared, so they just gave an answer. And the further he pushed, it came out that that wasn't really the answer, or maybe they didn't know, and he perceived it as, you were lying to me, you know, just tell me you don't know. Well, they didn't perceive that that would have been an acceptable answer. So you've got to watch when you work around dominance and make sure that that you have all of the information, but you give them a way to get just the basics if they want. Everybody good on dominance? Okay. Wait a minute. Before we get off of them, I want to make sure that you understand this is not narcissism, even though it can look like it at times. And it isn't anger necessarily. They may get frustrated because things aren't happening as quickly as they want, or people aren't doing things that they're telling them to do. But the personality itself is not one of anger. Most anger, or at least what we perceive as anger, the snapping back at people, when that happens, when that occurs, that is normally more of a response against an insecurity, or to protect an insecurity somewhere in their life. You know that you haven't, whatever, maybe it's you know that you've got a customer and you were supposed to go back and correct the spelling on their child's whatever, and you didn't get it done, and you know you've got to go to the school and they're going to ask you about it, and you don't have a choice, you don't have time to fix it, and you got to go to the school, and so you're kind of on edge, and somebody gets in front of you as you walk out the door and they ask you a question and you just snap. When we look and see people that just respond in a snappy, bitchy, gripey way, it normally doesn't have anything to do with the situation that's really at hand. It normally comes from something else in their situation that they're not comfortable with. Either something that they were supposed to do and didn't, or something that they did and they shouldn't have done, or when we dig down in there and really start asking, we can almost always uncover, if they'll give us honest answers, we can almost always uncover that it really is a response of something else. So if someone on your staff constantly gripes out the labs, well, there's something else there. Maybe it was because you didn't put the job into the e-commerce, you didn't get it into Got Photo for 3 weeks, and now you're pissed off because the lab ran into a supply chain issue or something, and so you're having struggles, but if it had gone in a week, it wouldn't be an issue, right? So you get mad at the lab because they can't dig you out of the hole you dug. So I don't want you to misunderstand being pissy for being a dominant. Completely different things, right? Different personalities. The expressive. This is one of the personality types that is the easiest to spot at a distance because they want you to know it, right? The expressives. They're very likable. They have magnetic personalities. These are your entertainers, your showmen. They're very impulsive, but they're also very disorganized. They take action. They'll get out there and do it. Ask for volunteer. Oh, me. But they may be limited by a need to be liked. That is their driving force. They're very, very concerned about the feelings of others, and it can pull them back, or if too many people have opposing opinions of what is good to be liked, it can really stress out and express it because they don't know which way to go. They're concerned about perception, appearance, all of those aspects that go through others' minds. They need to know that that phrase of "I'm okay, you're okay." They just need to know that they're okay. If you're okay, that's great, but they need to know that they're okay, especially in your eyes. They may have a whole lot of different projects at 90%. They get it good enough, and then they move on wherever the spotlight goes. So if the focus and the spotlight sees that the project is about over and it moves on to someone else, they will move with it. They need to be liked. They need to be seen. They like friendship. They like being popular. And they like being in positions of semi-authority. They like trophies, awards, certificates, recognitions. And they like being a leader or at least a popular player on the team. Now, that note over there about being disorganized, many times it's a debilitating factor that keeps them from being the boss. You won't necessarily find an expressive that is a leader of a large group unless they have a structure underneath them that can handle keeping everything in line, that handles the appointments and keeping things neat and keeping things to where they don't fall through the cracks. So you may have an expressive as a large leader. Some of my colleagues, you know that as teaching online, I have a lot of friends that are other CEOs that are very expressive, but they have a team of 4 or 5 virtual assistants or executive assistants that run around and keep them organized and help, they keep them rolling down the middle of a lane. So they have that charisma, but they need that structure network. So just know that if you have one in a position of authority, like a principal, then they probably are going to have the next personality type somewhere quietly sitting on the side that actually gets it all done for them. So there are ways that you can really engage with an expressive. They love to connect. And so we'll talk as we get into the marketing side of it here on ways that you can involve them and really help them out. Literally the very only person that griped about mail to home among thousands of people that we switched that season. We had schools, we had sports leagues, and other types of events, and we switched everything to mail to home. One person complained, and it was a teen mom, and her reason was that she always handed them out. Clearly, she's an expressive, and her thing was she had always picked up the packet, and I knew her. I've known her for years, and she would come instead of the coach, pick up the packet back when we trusted coaches to try to get them up there to pick them up. And she would go and she would be seen as the person with the pictures. And she would tell everybody that I have the pictures, I have them, so come see me afterwards. And then she'd go over at snack time afterwards and she would hand them out, standing there looking at it and making comments and whatever. So she kind of took ownership of the pictures, and she got that energy off of that. And it was a perfect role for her. So what we did when we understood that she was suddenly deficient in a role with our pictures, I gave her different things. I gave her some extra communication. I said, I'm going to send this out to all the parents, but I'll give this to you first, and so you can visit with everybody. And I gave her little bits of information that weren't in the other thing. Now, obviously, all the important information was what we sent out to everybody, but I gave her things that she got to share that made her feel important and special and still like she had an in. And so she got to look big in front of the rest of the parents on the team. So the expressives, if you will engage them and you will help them feel connected and special, they will be your friend forever. Okay. The dislikes. They do not like bluntness. They perceive it as being rude. So what did we just talk about? We talked about dominance. Yeah. A dominant, they'll make an expressive cry. They don't tolerate being ignored. They just cannot handle it. They don't like being interrupted or usurped. So if you've got to stop a conversation, maybe you're in a group and you know there's an expressive in the group and they're wanting to tell stories to connect, and you need to answer the principal's question, or you need to do something and you need to cut it off. say, excuse me for 1 second, or tie it in somehow. That is an excellent point, and you're exactly right. And then go ahead with your story. And at the end, you can come back and tie it back in, give it back to them. Think about it of a big spotlight, and you can turn that spotlight back, or the microphone, and hand the mic back to them. But if you have to interrupt them, let them know you're doing it with love, and figure out a way that you can turn around and give it back to them. They do not like having to follow structure. Now, many times they need that structure, and they like having it in a subconscious sense, but they will tell you right up front they don't like the structure. Oh, I don't like having to do. I hate this. I don't want to have to do any change. They don't like to have to stay focused. So if they have to sit and do something, it's rough. Minutia or minute details, they don't handle it well. And long meetings in which they don't get to have the spotlight or the microphone. Now, if you're controlling it, work them in occasionally. Okay, make sure that they are part of it, and they will help you as that influencer when you step away. They can be a powerful ally. I was in a group of executives, and there were probably, 300 or 400 of us in the room. There were the long, skinny tables set up with the stage up at the front. I was sitting about halfway back, and it was fairly crowded, but right as the lights went down, someone came in the row behind me and 1 or 2 seats over to the side, and I heard lots of noise and commotion and stuff. And so I knew without even turning around, from little comments that she made to the people around her and just the noise in general, that I had an expressive nearby. So during this was an executive session, and the goal was to sit down and write out specific processes for our companies. And as we started doing that, the instructions were that we were going to take, I don't remember now if it was 7 or 10 minutes or whatever it was. It was a fairly long period of time. No talking in the room. No looking around. This is you, your company. It is private. And, this is important. This is what's going to change your business next year. And so you need to do, and then he gave us a list of things to do. And so the first 10 seconds were fine. And then I heard, okay. And the ruffling of the papers stopped. And I could tell out of the corner of my eye, I could see her kind of look around, and nobody responded to that. So she started, all right, let's see. They require that you furnish your correct, and she started reading the questions kind of under her breath out loud. Nobody responded. So as time went on, it got more and more distracting, I'll say, to the rest of us, but she was trying harder and harder to keep that attention from those around her, at least. And at one point, of course, her pen stopped working, and so she had to go through her purse, and it was the big thunk up on the counter, and digging through, and she was taking things out, and clunk and clunk and clunk, and all of the noises, and go, oh, okay. Let's see. This one, yep, that one works. All right. And then she started up again. And after a few more minutes, I guess her lips got dry, and so she had to go in and find some chapstick. I mean, the point was that over the course of this brutal 10 minutes, all of us around her didn't get anything done because we were too busy being distracted by the show, which in her subconscious was her goal all along. And so, it was just such a perfect example, though, of this personality type and that core drive to be noticed and liked and loved, and in their mind, many times, Um, any attention is good attention, even though we know that that's not necessarily the case. Who's the expressive that everybody knows? Well, you know, Robin Williams is probably the quintessential example of an expressive. Um, and you know, they're the life of the party, the center of attention. Just like him, they may have struggles off camera, you know, or at home. They may suffer from some other issues, but you know, if you ever go back or get the opportunity, go to YouTube and look up Robin Williams on The Tonight Show and watch his presentation. He'll do his thing, and then after the first commercial break, he moves over and takes the second chair. Every single time when the next guest comes out and is sitting there doing their thing, it's their turn, Robin Williams will at some point grab the spotlight and pull it back to him. In some cases, one time he stood up and went fussy fussy 1, fussy fussy 2, and did his little dance moves across towards Johnny's desk and turned around and came back. It was tied into the conversation that Johnny was having with the next guest, but it was his way of getting the attention back to him. I mean, it is just such a classic example of this personality. So when you're dealing with this personality type in schools and early childhood centers, that's usually where we encounter it a little bit more, or even sports leagues, or certainly churches. Just recognize it, feed the attention, and you'll have much better success. Let them express themselves. Let them share their ideas and their experiences. You don't have to do them all, but figure out a polite way to get out of it, but let them share it. Involve them and let them be seen. This is a perfect person to hand out QR sheets or help with the scheduling, or let me back that up. They're not accurate enough to do all the scheduling, but if it's a church directory shoot, for example, and church members are coming in and you already have the schedule listed out there. Maybe they went online and they went to Calendly and they booked their appointment, and so they're coming in, and you have someone from the church at a table out there to say hi. That's perfect for them because they get to see everybody, they get to be seen, they get to have the conversations, and they're not really doing anything to hinder you, right? Do not overload them with details and oppressive structure. If you throw a whole lot of data at an expressive, it's not going to happen, and it's just gone. So don't even bother. Have a way to get around it, or have something that you can give to one of their team members that'll handle all of that. Don't interrupt them. Let them finish, and then bring it back around. The solid. It's my favorite because that's what I am. Now, I'm a trained solid, so even though I am a solid, I can become any of the other types when I need to be. But solids are supportive, consistent, loyal. I know it sounds like a golden retriever, right? But motivated by a true desire to help, and that can be seen or unseen. The expressive likes to help, but they definitely want to be seen. A good separation here. If a speaker during a presentation suddenly had something happen and they needed AA batteries, an expressive would dig through and find maybe their garage door remote and take the batteries out, and they would go right up the middle aisle. Here you go, I've got some, and walk up on stage and hand them to them. The solid would get the same batteries, go around the back, down the outside, and hand them to a staffer up front so they could just quietly slip up there and get them switched out. So a solid does not have to be seen. This is the person that can really help you in a school environment because they make the office function. They get it done. And, they're the ones that will stay up all night long fixing something because someone ran into some difficulties. Incredibly loyal friends. Limited by indecisiveness sometimes. And again, I've learned to overcome that, but it's just a matter of, well, I don't care. What do you want to do? And so if you have a family of solids, or there's some solid mixes in there, picking a place for dinner can be brutal because nobody really wants to force their opinion on the rest of them. So it's one of those things that it's hard for a solid to demand their way onto anybody else. They may be overly accommodating. And it may seem to vacillate because they're trying to please everyone. Or if you make a good point, they may change their opinion because, okay, it was this, you laid out these 5 points. Oh, okay, I see that. I'm okay with that. And change their mind. And so it may seem like vacillation, but actually it's just, you made good points, you changed my mind. The solids avoid conflict. Don't like conflict, want everybody to get along. Conflict is a bad thing. Now, there are people that get up in the morning looking to pick a fight with the bedpost. They just thrive on conflict. That is not a solid. And they will go to great lengths to avoid conflict. They will go above and beyond trying to help, but if you go get in the face of a solid, then they may just very quietly go choose someone else and move on. They won't necessarily call and set up an appointment to fire you. They'll just tell you behind the scenes or remotely, but they do not take conflict well. So if you're one of those that really like that in-your-face conflict type, you need to understand that the solids don't take that well. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win if you go get in their face. They shop with their wallet. I'm that way. I will not ever send food back or make a big stink in the restaurant. I will just never go back, ever. So, don't think of it as weakness. Just understand that they're not going to get in a fight with you unless you push their back to the wall. They like security. They like group acceptance. Now, that's group acceptance. They like personal accomplishments, but they don't have to be public. They can be private. They like positions of authority, and they do well in those. They like control and consistency. They don't like to offend others. And even though some of us really like change, we don't like change if it shakes things up. If it's conflict change, that's not a good thing. Or if it's change just for the sake of change and people are going to struggle with it, well, that's conflict. My team is going to get stressed out. No, let's just keep it. Okay. It absolutely crawls under the skin of a solid if someone doesn't follow the rules, especially if you're a firstborn child, because the firstborns are always the rule followers. It's those second children that are like, woo, as Bill Cosby used to say, come out with a scotch in one hand and a cigar in the other. But the first children typically like to follow the rules, and if you're a firstborn solid, you follow that rule. Now, I'm not being a sheep. If we don't like the rule, fair enough. Let's change it. But until we change it, we're going to follow what we have. And once we change it, we're going to follow that. Because that structure is important. That's what keeps everybody moving forward together as a society. So if you need to change a process for your staff, change the process in writing, communicate it, change it. But until you do, make sure you're following your own rules, okay, with your staff or certainly with a customer. Remember me? I just wanted to remind you that I'm still here. I'm the expressive, and so I'm not going anywhere. And so if you need me, I'm over here. I'm over here. Okay? Yes, that's something that an expressive would do. The solids are typically the first person to the scene of a need. If something happens and people run over to help, normally the solids are the first ones there. They are always observing what's going on around them so that they can help out and avoid conflict. And so these are really powerful allies for you in schools and sports leagues and wherever, because they know what's going on and they are constantly looking for ways to better serve parents, staff, whoever. Be honest, polite, and sincere. Okay? Don't like dishonesty. Follow the rules, change it if necessary, but once it's set, follow it. Let a solid know, I'm okay, you're okay. And avoid confrontation or being rude or aggressive. Okay? Now, I am a solid. My wife is the next version. My wife's an analytical. And analyticals are also very bullet listy, can be perceived as blunt. And so she will send me things to add a solids touch to it. She calls it the fluff. And it's not fake fluff. It's not like marshmallow or meringue fluff. It's making things sound a little nicer. And I talk about that in WhyMasters101. I actually give you examples of 3 executives in a real world situation. These are real email communications from 3 executives within a company. And you can see the personality types at work. But she'll send me something and I'll take a few minutes and take her 2 lines and spread it out into about 8 with pleases and niceties and send it back. And then she'll send it out. So you can work together and help each other. But the analyticals are very data driven. Now this does not mean they just like numbers, but they are very anal about the processes that they go through. Quality and accuracy are key. They don't want to be wrong. Okay? They need to be accurate. It's a core value for them. They like to be stable. She likes to know everything that's going to come in and out of the budget for the next 12 or 24 months. And not just the budget, but anything. Analyticals want to know long-term what's going to happen. So in your work, if you have an analytical at a school or a sports league or an early childhood center, they're going to want to know what's going to happen by the end of the season. When's the rebate check coming if you're still doing that, or what are the dates that we're going to have, and everything that they can find out, they're going to want to know. They're cautious. They do not make decisions quickly. Just understand that. They're very systematic, but they're very predictable. And they're very detail-oriented because anything less than that would be inaccurate. If you don't have all of the data, then you might make a wrong decision because you didn't have all of the information you needed. And they're always, 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 always asking in their head, why or why not? So they like accuracy, they like predictable outcomes, they like personal growth. And there are analyticals that are rather disheveled, both in their desk and in their hair. Einstein is the perfect example of that. Clearly, mentally, he was an analytical, but that's the scientific analytical. That's not necessarily the analytical that you're going to run into in your volume photography business. The individuals you work with, they're going to be the inbox 0 type people. They like neatness. I have completed all of those inboxes or all of the emails in the inbox. I cannot go home until that's done. And if I get 10 emails right at the time I'm leaving, damn it, And so that's what I'm talking about, neatness. And in the functional, normal, everyday world of analyticals, they will typically have neat desks. They will pick up things as they go through the house. They will like to be neat. They may not be, they're not fashionistas, but they'll be dressed conservatively but neatly. They like clear, concise conversations and consistency, and they need to know where to go for more information. So if you just give them the basics so they can get started, it's great, but tell them, give them a read more button on anything you do. They don't like fluff if it distracts from, and this is the meringue kind of fluff that doesn't really provide any extra information. It just is stuff out there. It's just words on a page that keep me from finding the information that I need. They cannot tolerate inaccuracy. So if you tell a school X, you better make sure that X happens. Or if something outside affects it, say for example the lab suddenly starts delivering things in 3 weeks instead of 3 days, not that we've seen that happen, COVID, but if that happens, you need to communicate it and tell exactly what happened, why it happened, and what steps have been taken to mitigate it, and that, here's the resolution. And if it's not fixed yet, okay, but here's what we're going to do to fix it. They don't like carelessness with data or conversation. Say what you mean with an analytical. They don't like criticism, and they may not call you out on it, but if you're being critical, then you're kind of accusing them of, in their mind, an inaccuracy or a deceit, or there's something that they're doing that's not complete or right, both of which are wrong to them. I mean, it's just like, So it's difficult sometimes for them to delegate because they would rather just stay up late and get it done and know that it's done accurately. They don't always trust other people's accuracy to get it done, especially if they have to sign off on it. They're going to want to check it and double check it and triple check it. They may take more time checking somebody's work than just doing it in the first place. And they know that, and therefore they just sometimes will just go do it. Social events, mingling affairs, they don't like that either. Really, the expressives are the only ones that really get into that. And of course, they want to be the center of attention. As an introvert myself, I know a lot of us that speak publicly. We're on stage around hundreds of people or thousands. It's no big deal, absolutely, and we'll do whatever we need to do around everybody. But to have to go to the bar afterwards and have small talk, or go to a party and mingle, that small talk, as an introvert, that's one of the definitions, is that kind of interaction drains you instead of energizes you. And so extroverts, it energizes them. Well, analyticals by nature tend to be a little more introverted in that type of scenario. And they don't like to make quick decisions. But actually they won't. I know several analyticals, and they do some of their best shopping and research after they've already purchased a new home or a new truck or whatever. They continue to shop. It's like, why are you still doing that? Why are you still looking at houses or trucks? Well, I want to make sure we got a good deal. Okay, what if you find out you didn't? Well, maybe we take it back. So everybody always thinks of, nerds when we think about analyticals, and that's not necessarily true. They don't have to be nerdy. There are a lot of military officers that are very analytical, that are very neat, very put together, very they're just really put together people, but they like all those facts. But I know in your mind, when I talk about analyticals, I know our dear old friend Woody is the one that comes to a lot of people's mind. Just know that they will never feel like they have enough information to make a decision. And the biggest struggle that I've always faced, in the last 12 years with photographers is that they won't go out and book something until they know every little tiny thing that they need to know. Well, I can't go talk to the schools about doing their work because I don't know how to put an order in rows yet. Dude, you haven't done anything with that school. Even if they said yes, we're talking 6 months before you have to do anything. And in a certain situation, like a surgeon, I want you to know how to how to put me back together before you cut me open. A pilot, I need you to know how to land before you take off. Fair enough. But in photography, there is so much you're not going to know at the point that you go book the thing, unless you've done this for decades. And even then, things change. I mean, good Lord, we went from film to digital. And then what's happened since 2020? COVID changed things on a monthly basis. So things happen, things change. It will continue to change and happen. And right now we have the school shootings. And so getting into the schools is a totally different structure than it used to be. Some of the states like Florida were always tough. Other states was no big deal. Well, now it's a big deal. And so, there will always be something you don't have an answer to. It's okay. You just need to know where to go to get that answer. And you've got to get the process started, or you will never grow your business. And you'll certainly never outgrow yourself. So it's okay in certain roles. We had a retired surgeon. He had been a surgeon for 25 years. And he had a chart of account with 183 different sub-accounts, like schools. And then under that, there were middle schools. Or I'm sorry, then it was by county. And then it was elementary schools and middle schools and high schools and private school. And everything was a separate sub-account for the bank account. I was like, oh my God, how many weeks did you spend on this chart of accounts? And you've never even gone out and talked to a school yet. And it was just pages and pages of these accounts. And well, but I need to have all this because it's all, so add it if it comes in. Right now you got to have income. I mean, get out there and book the business first. Then you can look at the rest of it. So just know, especially if you're an analytical, for some reason we have a whole lot of them in our industry. This is the biggest struggle that I find analyticals having in our industry, is they won't go out and book stuff because they're afraid somebody's going to ask them a question they don't know the answer to. And you need to just understand they will. It's okay. Know where to go to get the answer. You're a member of systems, call me, right? Text me. You've got my own personal information. Now, future members may not, but right now I'm available to any member that needs to reach out and contact me. And it happens, people contact me, hey, I just got out here to the school and X happened. What do I do? So, if somebody asks you a question, you can get the answer. Just go get it booked. All right. To relate with an analytical, be clear and concise, accurate, complete, use the correct terminology. We had someone at one of the labs that was very analytical, and he would stop a conversation and back them up a couple minutes. Wait. You said Y. Well, yeah, I meant X. I'm sorry. But that's not what you said. And his brain could not move forward because you said Y and I meant X. So, keep things calm, even keeled, be accurate in your information. All right. Now remember, you have a class on sales funnel and how sales and marketing relate to each other. So what we're going to talk about next, these are covered in greater depth in the sales process, understanding the sales process. But the big part of it right now is that there's sales and there's marketing. And marketing is sending out information into the world, whether that's electronically or cards that go out to the school or whatever. And sometimes people can log on and order and there's no real sales involved. It's marketing. Marketing is more automated, even though people put everything together. Sales is, in our definition, is helping uncover the pain point and helping them realize that you are the heal to their pain. You are the solution to the pain. There's a sweet spot in the middle where the two work together really well. Okay. We also talk about sales funnels. And for each of your avatars, and those are the people that, your specific person that is the ideal customer for that. And you'll have several. Sarah is the one that we talked about in a sales funnels course that I have, and you'll see her next. But for each avatar, you need to understand that out there in the world, suddenly someone becomes aware of you. And so they've entered your funnel. And they may spin around out there and they may fly back out because this funnel has holes in it, kind of like a colander. And as they spin around, they may slip out of a hole and disappear and go work with someone else. But if they keep coming and they're drawn into the funnel, then they're aware of you and now they have an interest in you and your solution. How can you pique their interest and get them to pay attention? Once you've got them interested, you want to make them want your relief to their pain. So that is a desire in a good way. They desire your relief to their pain. And then of course we got to have action in order to reap the benefits for everybody. They don't get the benefit of your pain relief unless they pull the trigger and take action. Same thing, you don't get the business unless they do the same. So there's an example. There's Sarah, and she's got the check, and she's going to give you that check. She went through that sales funnel. So go check out those courses, and it'll give you more information about that part of the process and how different analytical type or different personality types fit into that. So let's look for some examples here with these different types on the information you're going to put out, whether it's in print or it's digitally or it's verbally, however it is. We're going to set up a sports league and we're going to move everybody from traditional to virtual. And so for a dominant, which there are a lot of dominants that are presidents of sports leagues because sports pulls a lot of dominant people in there. Entertainment business pulls a lot of expressives. So, each industry out there tends to kind of pull people from one or the other. So for a dominant, you're going to bullet list all the pertinent points. You're going to have facts about efficiency, the fact that, with traditional photography, certainly with other photographers, sometimes parents are there an hour before a game and waiting for the coach or members of the team to show up so that they have enough players to take the picture. It's hot, it's windy, it's blah, blah, blah. All those points. With our system, parents arrive, we take their photo. They're typically done in less than 5 minutes. On average, for the last shoot, it was 3 minutes and 48 seconds. And then they're free to go get ready for the game. That's it. A dominant would love that information. It shows great efficiency. It's in and out. It's better for the team. It's better for the coaches. It's better for the players, blah, blah, blah. Save time and stress for the coaches, the league, the board, whatever. You could tout the fact that you're using a new online system. Let's say it's Got Photo because that's what our studios use. So it Got Photo, and we have super easy log on for the parents. They can log right on at the event. They can prepay there, or if it is a traditional shoot, you could say they could log on and see their proofs and purchase within a day. So an expressive, if we're putting out information, again, going back to, we're switching to virtual from traditional, by eliminating the issues that you had last year with brand X. This year, because we're going to move it inside, we're not going to have to deal with the weather. You're not going to have to deal with those long wait times. Parents are going to love you for how efficient this is, and they are going to just call you, and they're just going to love all over you for the fact that you have taken all those issues and made them all go away. So I took all the good things and I gave it to them that they're going to love you for this. The expressive, eat that up. If it's an analytical, you want to include how it works. Now, it could be as simple as this diagram. This plus this plus this equals whatever. Give them a more info button on there, but have something that's very descriptive of, here's the process. Now, don't get all texty, don't get too wordy, but with pictures and white space, show what the process is. Maybe you show pictures of your past events. Here's customer service, you get in this line, you do this, and then show a picture of a stopwatch with 4 minutes on it, right? You can find any stock picture that you're looking for. So, but make sure that an analytical has a more info button, and then they can go off and they can get all of that extra information. Comparative information is great. So for a solid, same kind of thing. By eliminating last year's issues, parents will be so much happier and less stress-free, or more stress-free. Your coaches are going to, they're going to love the process. You don't necessarily have to say you. You can say they're going to love the process. They're going to love the fact that they get the players back in 10 minutes because they just have to go right around the corner to the park. You want to let them know that everybody benefits from this and everybody has value because you're switching from last year's process to this process. So each one gets kind of the same message, but it's delivered in a different way. And so if you put each of those out there, I mean, if you know you're speaking with a particular type, then deliver that to them. If you're face to face with someone and you know that, then do that. If you're in a board meeting and you've got the sports league there, you can tell, you know exactly who the expressive is because they've been making noise and moving around the whole time you've been talking. You can tell who's taking all the notes. That's the analytical. Whoever they are, you can tell them these things. Just go right around the group. Boom, 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 boom. And so it's easy to give everybody the same message, but deliver it in a way that really connects with them and makes them say, okay, I hope this has made sense to you today. So do you think you understand the basics of asking why? All right. It's a pretty simple and easy thing. And unlike loading a gun and saying, here, go out there, this is something that with just this basic level of information, you can go practice. And it's okay, it's safe. Go look around. First of all, you need to identify what are you. Second of all, get out there and look at the people that you interact with. If you are an expressive and you're married to an analytical, now you know why you have such conflict, right? Because you're not the same type of individuals. Now you can work it out and you can work together and you can be very successful, whether it's a business relationship or a couple relationship, but you've got to understand what that is so that you can make it successful. So go try it. Go see who your family members are, your friends, your coworkers. Think about people in the schools and the sports leagues. Make a list even. You can go to Excel and you could write out all your deals, put your contact person there, and then tell who you think it is. I would love to get that from somebody. Occasionally I'll get those back to me when I ask, and it's very interesting to see who falls into what category based on what their role is. So go through the jobs that you have and just jot your initial thinking back opinion of what people are. And maybe there's an observation of, oh, okay, that's why they did this, or why they always do this. So when you do this, get out there and try it, and post it down in our forums. We're trying. I know it's not Facebook. It's not Facebook for a reason. We've seen some of the brutality that sometimes takes place on Facebook, and many times people are hesitant to respond there. So we have the forums down below. We would love to have you go post your results down there. There's a Your Turn forum, and so on all of our different courses, it'll say, now it's your turn. And the roadmap has several places where it's your turn. Well, drop those things in there. Let each other know kind of what your thoughts are, what your experiences are. And then if you see other people, go give them kudos, or tell them, reply back, tell them your thoughts, and encourage each other as we continue forward. So that's your assignment as we leave WhyMasters 101. And before we go off to WhyMasters 201, which will be out next month, get it down to the forums, get it posted, and send me your list if you want. You've got my email there. It's just mitchell@systems.photography, and I would love to see whether it's family, friends, staff, or people that you work with in your photo business. Who do you think they are? Are they dominants, expressives, solids, or analyticals? Right? That's it for now, and I will talk to you all very, very soon. Bye.